Evet, herkese merhaba. Günün sonuna doğru yaklaşıyoruz. Son 2 oturumumuz, ana oturumdan önce. Şimdi gerçekten ilginizi düşündüğümüz bir oturumla baş başayız. CrowdStrike'dan Sayın Zeki Turedi burada. Adı ve soyadının Türkçe gibi göründüğüne bakmayın. Ben de ilk tanıştığımda bir Türk zannettim ama yabancı bir arkadaşımızla karşı karşıyayız. So Zeki, this is your turn.
Thank you very much. I will first of all apologize. You may feel that this whole session will be in Turkish based on my name, but I have some very, very disgusting news to tell you. I am half Turkish. My father's Turkish. My name is Turkish. I can eat Turkish very well. I can't speak Turkish. So I really, really do apologize, and I think I need to get some lessons very, very quickly. Today's session, I know you've probably sat through quite a lot of product sessions so far. I don't want to talk about products. I want to share with you what we are seeing at CrowdStrike targeting organizations throughout the world. And what I want to do today is leave you with an idea of the situation from a cybersecurity perspective, but also the information that you can actually use back at your organization to strive to solving the most complex security incidents in a timely manner. So at CrowdStrike, for those who are not aware of the company, we've been around for several years, and we're a cybersecurity company, and our job is to track and trace a number of different adversaries from nation states, criminal organizations, basically the bad guys throughout the world. We do this with a combination of our own technology, but we also go and help companies, no matter where they are, to help them solve the issues they may face after being breached or had an incident. We also do threat intelligence. And threat intelligence is about tracking and tracing and knowing as much as possible about the adversary. And a lot of what we've learned over the last 12 months is what I want to share to you today about what the current landscape looks like. So typically, when we talk about cybersecurity and the nation state or adversary, we still feel like it's nation versus nation. Unfortunately, over the last 18 months, this has completely changed. No longer is it nation versus nation, but unfortunately, every single person here in this room today, the organizations that we all work and strive to protect, could be targeted by any type of threat actor. Traditionally, we always knew the type of actor that might be interested in our organization. If I worked for government, nation states would be after me. If I worked in corporate, maybe criminal organizations would be after me. But unfortunately, in the last 18 months, it's shown that the lines have been blurred. Now, the reality is, on the other side, we talk about scares, we talk about the big bad guys, the nation states, but the reality is also there's organizations like CrowdStrike and governments throughout the world working tirelessly to make sure that we can find these threat actors, no matter where they're hiding. And we're doing a very, very good job of tracking these individuals and making sure that they understand, we know who they are, and we make it public. Again, traditionally, we've always still feel that malware is the biggest problem that we face. A lot of the security solutions that we are using today still focuses on malware. But as you can see from the infographic behind me, 39% of the attacks we saw in the last 12 to 18 months, are actually malware-free tool sets. And this is being used by a number of different threat actors. Again, traditionally, we would have said malware-free would have been used by purely nation-state adversaries. But again, criminal organizations are realizing how highly effective malware-free is and harnessing it within their own toolkits. The reality is, majority of the malware-free tools used by nation-state adversaries are freely, openly available to anyone on the internet. It just takes someone who has a little bit of understanding of how these scripts work to modify them and use them for their own advantage. Which means it's very easy for anyone, no matter who they are, no matter their skills and capabilities, to harness these exact same tool sets that cause huge amounts of damages to organizations, and unfortunately, a majority of companies just have no visibility into. We see an alarming increase in cyber capabilities by a number of countries as well today. Unfortunately, we live in this cyberspace of constant conflict. I like to use North Korea as an example. So for most people, North Korea is a country that can't even have any lights on in the evening when it's dark. It's full of sanctions. People are starving. But they can build nuclear warheads. I'll be entirely open and honest to you. If you can do nuclear, you can do cyber. Nuclear is a lot harder than cyber. And North Korea has a highly capable offensive cyber outfit. And they've been doing this for many years. Now, the reason why I bring North Korea up again is this is a very, very good indication of a nation-state adversary that is part of that blurred lines. We saw last year with the likes of WannaCry. WannaCry has now been attributed back to North Korea. But it wasn't targeting governments. It was targeting everyday organizations, everyday businesses to gain ransom. We see them targeting financial organizations throughout the world. Several times in the last 6 months, they've been targeting banks in Asia and through the Middle East and getting away with huge amounts of money. They are a nation state that is targeting organizations and following the similar methods used by criminal organizations to keep their own party and the whole family, so the Kim regime, successful through sanctions. Apologies, you may not see the infographic very well, but we also see in the last 12, 18 months a number of large-scale breaches. Take into consideration Equifax. So Equifax had nearly 150 million individual persons' information stolen. The infographic shows the volume of data that was stolen based on sector. You'll notice in the very, very top, it's government, healthcare, and finance. Now, when we show this infographic, majority of people feel that this may have been caused by one or two very, very large incidents. The reality is we're starting to see the adversary not going for the big organization, but going for lots and lots of small companies who may have access to the same network, have the access to the same information. Maybe it's only a small subset of that data, but all they have to do is target one of those organizations several times, and they'll get the same volume of information. They've realized that the smaller companies who have access to the same networks don't follow the same security controls than the big organizations do. And the reality is, the reason is, it doesn't matter who you are. If you hold information that is worthwhile, of use to someone, you need to make sure you have the right precautions and protection capabilities to protect that data, even if it's a small subset of information. I mentioned this previously as well, but again, we've seen a huge increase in state-sponsored ransomware. I spoke briefly about WannaCry, now attributed back to North Korea. We also saw NotPetya and Bad Rabbit last year, now being attributed to Russian nation-state adversaries. What most people don't realize is the malware that took down nuclear power plants in Ukraine in 2014 was roughly the same code used to target organizations through the Bad Rabbit and NotPetya codebase. Nation-state tooling targeting everyday businesses. So again, no longer can we say that our organizations will not be targeted by nation-states. We need to make sure that, again, our organizations are protected against any type of capability and tooling that may come across us. We've also, through those phases, told the adversaries one thing as well. Today, only a few weeks ago, large organizations were being taken down by the Eternal Blue exploit, something we've known about for so long. It's basically told the threat actors we're not very good at patching, keeping our hygiene capability to a recommended level. We need to make sure that we're aware of these new issues. It takes a criminal organization less than 24 hours to harness a vulnerability and embed it into their capabilities. Less than 24 hours, which means that we have to be extremely diligent and responsive to new vulnerabilities that could target our organizations, especially vulnerabilities that maybe target Office products or Windows. And supply chain. We need to remember who has access to our networks. Not only who has access to our networks, but the products, the software that we use in our organizations. Where does it come from? The adversary has realized we have this unspoken reliability or trust in the tool sets that we use within our companies. We need to make sure the tools that we install within our companies and those organizations are using secure development life cycles. And we can do our due diligence to make sure those companies are treating our networks appropriately. So there's plenty of scaremongering. That's the threat landscape. But what can we do to make sure that we're looking after our networks? Now, on average, it takes organizations roughly 63 hours to respond to an alert or detection. 63 hours to work out what type of incident is going on in an organization. That's a very, very long amount of time. It's even longer depending on how long your analysts are working. Do they work 24 hours a day or 9 till 5? Take that information and take into consideration what we call the breakout time. This is probably one of the most important statistics in incident response. The breakout time is how long it takes for an initial machine to be exploited and the adversary and threat actor start moving cross-laterally in that organization. Basically, they've done reconnaissance, credential dumping, and start spreading through your network. And it's 1 hour and 58 minutes. The reason why this is so important is because it basically takes an actor to turn an incident into a breach in less than 2 hours. You can have the best analysts in the world, the best technology, but it's not easy to start tracking a threat actor once they start moving cross-laterally for the organization. Our life is a lot easier if we deal with lots and lots of incidents. And I like to kind of leave you with a goal. And this is what we call the 1-10-1. Be able to detect incidents within a minute, be able to respond to incidents in 10 minutes, but be able to fully remediate within the hour. Now, the reality is this is going to fluctuate. But if we stick towards this goal, it means we have the best fighting chance against the different adversaries out there. I want to very, very quickly just cover some very, very, very quick myths. So next-gen technologies will reduce alerts. Again, we're starting to hear a lot about this idea of next-gen. We need to remember that we are dealing with more security incidents in our organizations today. If we believe that the new technologies will hide those alerts, we are incorrect, because we are investing in these technologies to bring to our attention the new unknown incidents in our organization. And the reality is it's increasing. Incidents equals a breach. Not all security incidents are breaches. And we need to remember that. And we also train our individuals, our personnel, to be able to deal with those incidents as effectively as possible so they don't become a breach. But also not to panic, rehearse, process, and so forth. Threat intelligence is just a feed of indicators. Actually, harness threat intelligence. Threat intelligence is about having intelligence about the threat actor, understanding who's interested in your organization. The reality is, not every adversary is after your company, but there are a few. And it's easier to understand who is after you by harnessing threat intelligence so you can scope correctly. We can't fight the battle if we're looking for this many people. But the reality is, our true scope is minimal. And it's easier to fight the battle when we know what our scope looks like. You cannot use the cloud. The reality is, the cloud is designed in security in mind. Not one cloud platform has been compromised. But the reality is, there has been some cloud environments badly configured. At the same time, we should be adopting new technology. We also need to make sure that security is adopting these new technologies and being part of that adoption. Make sure that you are speaking to these organizations and they're taking security in mind. And lastly, threat hunting is just searching for new IOCs. Harness threat hunting. Threat hunting is about identifying what's not being picked up by those other technologies, what's not being seen by passive or preventative technologies. It's about using your knowledge, your visibility, and your expertise in your organization to find the unknowns, the suspicious artifacts. Thank you very much.
Do you have some last words for us? Just increase the maybe, let's say, the security awareness of everybody.
So actually, one of the things I would actually say is, again, it goes back to this idea of, we talk about technology a lot, but we always kind of forget about the people and processes. We can't just solve security by implementing technology. We need to make sure that our security analysts, the individuals who are on the front lines of our own corporate networks, are correctly trained and understand how to deal with these situations. Again, I think it goes back down to one of my slides saying, is an incident a breach? No. But unfortunately, when an incident occurs sometimes in our organizations, we panic and we think the worst case scenario has happened. And the reality is, if we are well trained and understand the process we need to follow, we can actually deal with really complex, really serious incidents on a regular basis without them ever becoming a huge problem for our organizations. And very much, security awareness comes into that as well.
Thanks.